30 minutes. The following week, I went on this trip called the Fat Water Kayak Challenge. I don't know if you guys ever heard of it or not, but it's 42 miles down the Mississippi River. That was my second time ever to kayak, was doing this trip. So I'm in my hotel. We're in Natchez, Mississippi, and I'm loading up on the bus in the morning to go where they drop us off. All these professional kayaks from all over, actually all over the world. There's a guy from Australia there in this trip. We're on the bus and we're driving and we're talking, and this guy hears me sharing the story of what I'm doing and how we're raising money for KW Cares, and he stops. His name is Michael, and he says, "Hey, I have a quick question. I'm hearing your story. I mean, you've kayaked before, right?" And all of a sudden, everybody kind of shifted, and they looked at me, and I was like, well yeah. Well, I had 30 minutes in the little lake in Baker, right? He said, but I mean, you've done a long trip. It's not like you're just coming out here with your kayak and you've never kayaked before, right? I mean, you've done something 6 or 7 hours. I didn't know what, I was kind of spy. Everyone was looking. I was like, well, yeah. Okay, well, you'll be fine. So we get there. They had given us a list of all the things we needed for this trip. We needed to have a VHF marine radio so we could call the Coast Guard if we had a problem. When we got there, they told us that the Coast Guard had pulled out of the event and they were not going to be there to help us if we needed any help at all. They had some rescue boats, but they didn't show up yet. So when we were starting to race, they only had 2. 42 miles down the Mississippi River, they had 2 safety boats in this trip. We had a survival pack that they told us what we need to make and what we need to keep in it, so we had in our kayak. We had to have our PDF, our life jacket, our PFD, and had to have it on all the time. So we get into the water and we start kayaking, and I'm with this group, and I have this picture. I'll pass it around in a minute on my iPad. After about 2 hours, the first 2 hours I'm with a group of people, but then after that you can zoom in on the iPad, you know. Hey, you can make your picture bigger. Do that when I pass it around. Because you'll look and you can see miles down the Mississippi River and you're going to see nobody. Because everyone left me. I was totally by myself it took me 8.5 hours to finish this race. The guy that won it did it in 4 hours. Probably about maybe an hour into the trip, I'm still with Mike, who was on the bus. The water got really rough. And you wouldn't think of the Mississippi River would get rough. I mean, it's currents and stuff, but it was white capping. The kayak was going up and slamming down, and when it would slam down, the nose would go into the water, the waves would come up over, and now I'm kind of rocking, and I get scared, right? And my paddle was tied to my kayak, it was tethered to my kayak. I just dropped it, and I grabbed the handles on the side, and now all of a sudden the current turned me sideways. So now I'm really going sideways. And he stopped, and he said, you can't stop paddling. You have to paddle through this. When the water's rough like this, you can't stop paddling. And then he left me, and I'm in my group. I'm by myself. I literally pulled over on the bank at one point, and I had this a GPS kind of tracker that people could see my route along the way, and this is how we were raising money for this guy, so people could watch the trip through Facebook. I pulled over. I called my wife. The only problem was I couldn't see it. So I called my wife on the bank, and I said, it's noon now. We left at 8. I've been paddling nonstop 4 hours. No one in sight. I can't catch up to anyone by myself. I call my wife, and I say, can you see where I'm at on the map? She says, you're doing so good. You're almost at the halfway point. And I literally unzipped my life jacket, had a log, and I just went and sat on it. And I thought, I'm not getting back in this kayak. My arms are burning. I mean, I can't do it. And something pushed me to get back into the kayak, and the hardest thing I did was shove off of that beach and paddle more. They had rescue boats. If you raise your paddle, the boat would come over. So I raised my paddle, and the boat came over. And they're going to pull me out of my kayak. And I said, no, I didn't call y'all over here. My paddle just went up. And then they left. And when they left, I had this conversation with myself. They're driving away, and I'm saying to myself, you're letting them leave. Why are you letting them leave? You called them over here, and now they're leaving. Call them back. I did that 3 times in this race, calling the people over. Why am I starting off telling you the story? Is because in the car business, in the real estate business, in any business, you're going to have good times, you're going to have hard times. You're going to have times you want to quit. You're going to have times you're going to think, is this business the right business for me? You're going to want to pull over on the side of the bank like I did and just sit down and go, really evaluate and go, what am I doing? I feel like just giving up. You're going to feel like raising the paddle and calling the boat over to go, I quit, I'm done. But what was amazing was somehow I was able to, I kind of said my frame of mind, paddle through the pain, because my arms were hurting so bad at the end of the race. I literally think I was just slapping the water. I don't even think I was paddling anything. My arms were just moving, but I could see the finish line. I could see the finish line for an hour and 45 minutes. And then it started to get, I was excited at first, like, oh my God, that's the finish line. And then I was like, it's not even getting closer. I'm never going to make it. But when I finished the race, it was just an amazing accomplishment for me. It was a big thing for me. And I started talking to our agents about how there are times that they're going to want to quit. We had to have specific, we had to plan, we had to prepare, we had to have our survival kit. So I want to share 6 things that I believe that if they're in your survival kit, that it doesn't matter what the market is like in the car business. It doesn't matter what the market's like in the real estate business. We have agents, and they're successful, and they're going to be successful whether it's a great time or a slow time. You know why? Because mindset is everything in anything that you do. And so we're going to talk about 6 perspectives, and you have some notes. And on there, the first thing it says is my mission. I think that you should all have a person just to master my life, my career, and my relationships to such a degree that I can't help but impact those around me and attract those who seek the same. And I work really hard every day at enforcing that mission statement, that I'm constantly looking to empower those around me. I'm constantly looking to attract those who are seeking the same. I don't know what your mission statement should be, but you should have a mission statement. You should know where you're trying to get to. Mark Twain says, I can help anybody in life get anything that they want. The only problem is I can't find anybody who knows what they want. So when you really sit down and you think, what in your survival kit needs to be, well, here's my mission. Here's where I'm going. Here's the direction that I'm moving in. And then next to that, you see 90-day goals. I think you should set big goals because big goals pull you right past your small goals. But I also think that we work great in 90-day cycles. You can really work hard and put your head down. You can set some goals, and you can look up in 90 days, you can accomplish those. And then you take a little break and then set some 90-day goals again, do another cycle. And you work great in those 90-day cycles. You ever heard the phrase, you see on number 1, it says, some people make things happen, some people watch things happen, and some people say, what just happened? And you probably see that every day, even here. You see some people who, they can make something happen, and while everyone else is kind of just standing around and watching, and then you have some people who go, oh, what just happened? What did you miss? What happened? It's because of this. Number 2, mindset is the key to high achievement. I want to recommend a great book that I think would absolutely help you grow your business. It's The Inner Game of Tennis. You go, well, how in the world will the inner game of tennis help me sell more cars? Because it talks solely about mindset. It is a neat video, so when you get a chance, check it out. So here are the 6 perspectives, the 6 thoughts I think you should have in your arsenal. Number 1, commit to self-mastery. Commit to self-mastery. Self-mastery is the possession of great knowledge, skills, and habits that make you the master of you.
Possession of great what?
Great knowledge, skills, and habits that make you the master of you. There is a big difference, would you guys agree with me, in knowing how to do something and mastering it? Do you agree with that? There is a big difference in knowing how to do something and mastering it. That's why you can have 2 people who do the exact same thing and get completely different results. Do you know how to follow up? Is follow-up critical in your business? Is it just as critical in yours as it is in ours?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. How many of you know how to follow up? Hopefully everyone, right? Is there a difference, though? Can 2 people have a system to follow up? One has a system to follow up, and one just knows it's important. And one might follow up a little bit sporadically every once in a while, but not on a consistent basis in a systematic way. The other can do it every single time consistently in a systematic way. Who's going to get the better results? The one who's constantly doing it and has a system following up with their clients. Well, that's two people. They're both following up, right? But they're getting completely different results. That's because one knows how to follow up and one's mastered follow-up. And it works in every area in your business. For our business, scripts and dialogues are critical. When you're trying to influence somebody and you're helping them to accomplish their goal of owning a home or selling a home, or you've got to sit down and have a conversation with someone because they want to sell their house for $500,000 and realistically they can sell it for $350,000. Is that a difficult conversation to have with somebody? And if you don't have the right scripts and dialogues and you just try to wing it, and then the agent behind you comes in who mastered scripts and dialogues and can have that conversation, who's going to get the listing? Yeah, the last agent who has the scripts and dialogues. So it's no different in your business. You probably have scripts and dialogues that you use. There's a big difference in knowing them and using them versus mastering them. So self-mastery is critical. Number 2, commit to the 80-20 principle. How many guys have heard of that? The 80-20 rule.
All of them.
And what does that say? 80% of the people make 20% of the money. Let me give you a different perspective on it. 20% of your activities generate 80% of the results that you want. And the opposite's true. 80% of your activities only generate 20% of your results. So what are your 20% activities? And when I say that, what are the big rocks that if you focus on this 20%, it's going to generate you 80% of what you want? In our business, it's lead generation, to get appointments, to get listings, to write contracts, to close contracts. Those are the 5 things you should be focused on. You should not be spending your time making a flyer for a house and you spend 3 hours on it. What you should be doing, I have agents all the time, they're terrified to pick up the phone and lead generate. They're scared to death to call somebody. When they do call someone, they do the prayer. Do you guys know what the prayer is? You might not know real estate, but the prayer is, please don't answer. Please don't answer. Right? And that's what they did. And I'll say, why are you making this flyer? Oh, this is going to be awesome. It's even got a QR code on it. People can scan it. That's great, but that's an 80% activity. Your flyer is not going to generate. What's going to generate the results you want is actually picking up the phone and calling people and generating the leads. Tapping into your sphere of influence. Lead generate. So what are your 20% activities? You've got to identify them. You probably know them. Do you spend the bulk of your time in the 20% activities? There is a pattern of predictable imbalance in life, and trying harder isn't the solution to achieving more. Sometimes it's part of the problem. One more book I want to recommend is a small little book you can read in about 30 minutes. It's called U Squared. U with the little 2 up at the top. Price Pritchett is the author of that book. What's really neat is when you identify your 20% activities and you stay in those 20% activities that generate 80% of the results you want, you find that you're doing a whole lot more, you're accomplishing a lot more, but you're not working as hard. It's a pretty neat what happens. But what we do is we go, oh my gosh, I'm not doing well, I need to try harder. And back to the quote about insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results. Trying harder is sometimes part of the trap. So we work hard, and we don't get the results we want, so we go, let me just work even harder. It's like if I'm driving to Lafayette, but I'm going down I-10 headed to New Orleans, and I see a sign, and it says New Orleans, 20 miles. And I go, oh my gosh, I'm going the wrong way. I better speed up or I'll never get there. That would make no sense. But we do that in life and in business all the time. When we are focused on the 20% that matters, we get 80% of the results that we want. So here's the question. How much of your day is spent on income-producing activities? How much of your day is spent on income-producing activities? So you got to set some goals, right? You identify what those activities are, you set some goals. Set some SMART goals. I'm not going to go into detail on SMART goals, but if you go, you maybe have heard that acronym, set SMART goals. They are specific, measurable, action-oriented, meaning you're attaching an action plan to it to accomplish it, realistic, and time-bound. Specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and time-bound. One good way for you to stay in your 20%, I always tell our agents, stay in your 20%. Now, all I'm telling them is focus on the main thing. Keep the main thing the main thing. Time blocking, that's a great way to do that. Time blocking is where you dedicate specific periods of time to specific purposes. So you should have a day planner, an agenda that you look at, and that day planner should be blocked. It shouldn't, your whole day's not blocked, but you block out the key things you need to do. Follow up, lead generate. Those things are on your schedule. High achievers know what matters, the 20%, and they block the time to do that first. Number 3, and this is probably my favorite one. Commit to move from E to P. You go, what in the world is that? Entrepreneurial mindset to purposeful mindset. Salespeople always have an entrepreneurial mindset. And that's a great thing, but you want to move to having a purposeful mindset. Entrepreneurial style is doing what comes natural. You're going off your natural talent, your natural